The following is a special presentation of high school sports. It's the High School Coaches Show. Here's your host, Justin Kenny.
Welcome in, everyone, to a Week 8 edition of the ESPN Coaches Show presented by Crumback Chevrolet. I'm Justin Kenny. DC Hendricks producing. A little uncomfortable here in the studio with both of us wearing the same shirt. Not the same shirt. I mean the same kind of shirt. And we're not sharing a shirt.
We're not sharing.
Sharing a shirt. We don't give a visual out to
We just so happen to have the exact same shirt on at the same time.
Yeah. I don't know if it's good team building or if it's just pathetic. I think it's a fine line. But we're not really sure how to react to this, but we're gonna try to fight through it. Yeah, a little difficult. But he is DC Hendricks producing for us. We're here till 7 o'clock talking area high school basketball. Just 2 weeks away from the start of the playoffs. And just, 5 days away from the draw? We'll find out the first round matchups on Sunday afternoon-ish. And so we'll actually be able to talk some matchups in the postseason, because I feel like we've reached a point in the year where we're really kind of grasping for stuff to talk about. And we'll talk to Dan Vance about it in just a second here. But you look at the conference races, pretty much wrapped up. We have we're playing for second place in some of these conferences this week, but really, what does that matter? So it's all about really priming for the postseason and which team is peaking at the right time. We're going to talk to Dan Vance about that. 6:15, we'll talk about a team with big aspirations for the postseason. And he said if I mentioned the word state at any point in the interview, he was going to hang up. It's Grant Mosher of the South Adams Starfires. He will join us at 6:15. A first-timer to the show. At the bottom of the hour, Coach Bob Prescott for the Huntington North Vikings took a hard loss last week against Leo, but Huntington North has made some big strides in the first year under Coach Prescott. So we'll talk to Coach about his program in year one, and then we'll talk to Jason Garrett of the Bishop Dwenger Saints at 6:45. Of course, the premier game in the SAC coming up in Week 8 is Bishop Dwenger and Snyder. But we're going to start it off, as we do each and every week, with our friend Dan Vance from OutsideTheHuddle.net, who joins us on the phone right now. Dan, how are you?
Doing great, Justin. How you doing?
Not bad. And I have to ask you, do you right now have an OPS shirt on?
I do.
Oh, geez. Which one is it? Is it the Summit City Shootout one?
No, it's not. Okay. It's just the regular light blue OPS shirt. It's really creepy that you know that. Do you have cameras in my house?
No, but that's the shirt that DC and myself have on right now, is the Own the Field Ops shirt. So it was really going to get uncomfortable if you had the same shirt on. So DC,
but I am wearing an OPS shirt. So
DC, he does have an OPS shirt on, but it's not the one. So, okay, now we can move on to more trivial matters. Now that we got the important stuff out of the way, because it's already uncomfortable with two of us. I couldn't imagine if it was a trifecta. But, Dan, we're in Week 8, and I think all of us are kind of just, okay, what can we talk about, really, with some of these teams, some of these conferences? But with 2 weeks to go, which conference stands out to you with the most intrigue in terms of either matchups or where these teams are going to slot in, head into the playoffs? Which conference would you say, hey, this is the one to watch over the next 2 weeks?
Oh, that's a tough one. That is a very tough one. I'm going to say the SAC, and a big part of that is going to be this week, and Dwenger and Snyder, essentially, unless Homestead just does something monumentally bad, is for second place. But it's a matchup that we look forward to from the beginning. A lot of us thought that this could be something that determines the SAC or a tiebreaker, and it's not going to determine a title more than likely. But I think that that's probably the game with the most intrigue going forward. So that's really where I have to put my money is the SAC.
You know, you look at the SAC schedule, and obviously the marquee game is Bishop Dwenger at Snyder. But, Carroll Concordia should be interesting, I think, at Zollner. I think Northrop and Northside has some intriguing storylines out of that one, too. So when we're looking at matchups, I think it's a pretty competitive week. I mean, Southside at Lures, even. I mean, in terms of the matchups in the SAC, there's a lot to talk about this week.
Yeah, this week is definitely a great week for the SAC as far as different teams could win. We've had so many weeks where we've gone by and it's been like, well, we know who's going to win these games, barring some monumental upset. We have a pretty good grasp on who's going to win week in and week out. So I think that's a great week for them. I think going into next week, looking ahead a little bit in week 9, that is some intrigue maybe in the Northeast 8. That's kind of pending what happens this week. If East Noble were to happen to lose to New Haven this week, then you're looking at a week 9 game where Leo and DeKalb could be playing for a chance to share that title. So there's a little bit of intrigue pending what happens this week elsewhere, but as far as this week's games, the SAC definitely has it.
I think in the Northeast 8 this week, you have Columbia City at Leo. That could be a good one. Columbia City has lost 3 straight trying to rebound. Huntington North at Norwell, I think, could be pretty good. Norwell was up 9-0 at the break against DeKalb on the road last Friday. And then you mentioned that New Haven at East Noble matchup with the Bulldogs having won 3 straight. So a really compelling schedule as well in the NE8 this week. Dan, you've seen a lot of football over the course of the season. And when we talk about complete teams, and I'm not saying the best team, because I don't think we can say South Adams is the best team in the area, but in terms of the most complete football team, is there a team that comes to mind that you've seen or seen enough on video and film to say this is the most complete team within its class in Northeast Indiana?
South Adams obviously immediately comes to mind. They're able to stop a lot on defense, and their defense doesn't get enough credit for what they've been able to establish in games. Against Adams Central, they gave up the run a little bit early, but they kind of clamped down on that. They've been able to adjust. They're right there right now as one of the complete teams. I won't mention that word you said that we're not allowed to say. But I think they have a good shot at it. East Noble looks really complete right now as well. Consistent, 5 touchdowns every week for the first 6 weeks. They only scored 4 last Friday night. But it's a pretty consistent team overall, and what you're getting from East Noble. And I think that Bishop Dwenger is a team that we don't talk about enough just because of how good Homestead's been this year and how complete they are. And every year, offensively with that team, we see the run game kind of being the predominant method that they use. But, Brendan Lytle's coming off a great week, threw for 310 yards last Friday night in a win over Lures. He's having a great year throwing the ball, so much more diverse with what they can do this year than last year. It doesn't necessarily mean they're better than last year's state championship team, but they're more complete in the fact that they can attack you in different facets that they weren't able to do in the past.
Yeah, taking a closer look at Bishop Dwenger, you mentioned it in terms of that offense, and I think Brendan Lytle really slinging it a lot better than he did a year ago. And then defensively, I mean, the most points they've given up all year in a single game was that 17 to Homestead in their only loss. Only one other team has scored in double digits on them, and that was Concordia 2 weeks ago. So, yeah, Snyder coming up at Spuller, and then they go play Northrop at Spuller, so they have a doubleheader at Spuller over the next 2 weeks. But when we're talking teams that can make state runs, and we talk South Adams, and I can say that because we don't have Grant Mosier on yet, so we can say South Adams. But I think Bishop Dwenger, particularly defensively, has maybe been more impressive in the regular season this year than it was last year. But it's going to be a different landscape in terms of competing for a state title in 5A. But where would you rank Bishop Dwenger's chances just 2 weeks left in the regular season?
Well, I think they definitely have a really good chance at least getting to the state championship in 5A. Like you said, the defense, we've had so much high-powered offense a lot of places this year. We don't talk enough about the defense, and I was going to bring up Dwenger anyway just because we haven't talked about them. Homestead has been so good, and so much focus has been on how good Homestead's been to some people's expectations. But Bishop Dwenger is still a very, very good football team. You match them up against Homestead 10 times, it's probably 5-5. Griffin Eifert has played fantastic back there, among other people, for them this year. And I think their defense is going to be something that's really going to be suffocating when you get into the postseason. I think they always ramp it up in the postseason with their defensive pressure, and that's going to be something that's really going to help them advance through the playoffs.
Dan, let's take a closer look at Homestead. They're going to be able to get the victory bell, barring something crazy. They'll be able to paint that up in Homestead colors for the first time in school history. When we look into 6A, and let's play hypothetical in terms of, let's say they can beat Snyder a second time, which is no guarantee. Likelihood that they play Carmel is up there. Maybe Fishers is pretty decent. But let's say they play a Carmel, and it's a team that has handled Homestead in 2015 and 2016 in regional play. So can this Homestead team make noise in a stacked 6A playoffs that maybe previous Homestead teams were not able to?
It's going to be really interesting. They have the ability. A big component to that is being able to stay healthy. And that's something that Homestead's going to need to be able to do going forward. Obviously, the worry about Luke Goody a couple of weeks ago when he took a hit and went down for a little bit. We don't know what Brayton Hardwick's status is right now. So they've got to be able to stay healthy. If they're healthy, I think they have a chance just because they are another team that is deep. They can attack you in a lot of different ways on both sides of the football. We saw last week Jared Kistler is becoming another huge weapon in the receiving corps. They have a great receiving core. I think they have a chance, but healthy is what you got to stay. And there's been a couple of bumps along the way that you got to prove that can't happen down the stretch.
He is Dan Vance of OutsideTheHuddle.net joining us here on the ESPN Coaches Show presented by Crumback Chevrolet. Dan, let's look at the Northeast 8. We talked about East Noble, kings of that conference right now. They get New Haven coming in on Friday. Two teams that jump out that are 6-1, DeKalb and Leo, and they'll meet up next week, week 9, probably one of the premier games in the entire area in the final week of the regular season. Which one of those do you feel could be a bigger threat in the postseason?
I think they're both kind of threats. The thing about Leo that's more intriguing now is that Jackson Barber, the sophomore quarterback, is really coming into his own. He's letting the ball loose. We saw that against East Noble a couple of weeks ago. We saw that again last week against Huntington North. He's throwing the ball more. He's comfortable, and that goes a long way to helping them. So much of the load was put on Peyton Wall the first 5-6 weeks of the season, and he's shined as well. But when they've had setbacks, obviously the loss to East Noble, the game against Norwell that was 3-2, that was because Peyton Wall wasn't able to carry the load the way he had in the other weeks. And so having more diversity with Jackson Barber makes Leo more dangerous. I would say DeKalb still has the edge, though, because I don't know that we've ever seen a complete DeKalb team this year. They've played really good portions of ball games, three-quarters of ball games, or they've been really good defensively a game, or they've been really good running the ball a game, or passing the ball a game. But I don't know that we've seen a complete 100% team game out of DeKalb, and I think that makes them really dangerous.
Unfortunately for both of those teams, they're in the same sectional as East Noble, a team that's already beaten both of them. So unfortunately for whoever finishes maybe 8-1, as good as 8-1, they're going to have maybe a 9-0 East Noble team in that sectional. Dan, going to the Northeast Corner Conference, Angola was the darling of that conference for the last 2 years, going undefeated, winning sectional championships in a very difficult 4A sectional. West Noble sits there at 7-0, not getting a lot of love, and I feel like it was the Angola team of a couple years ago where when they won a tough sectional, everybody kind of started giving them a respect. But it's sectional 26 for West Noble. They reside in there with an undefeated Mishawaka Marion team, a Jimtown team that is down but still pretty solid program. South Bend Washington has been good at 5-2. Played John Glenn really tough a couple weeks ago. But West Noble, as good of a team as they've had in quite some time, but can they match up particularly with, let's say, a Mishawaka Marion team that has really destroyed their competition, giving up just under 5 points per game this year?
And that's the tough question because we haven't seen West Noble be tested by a team of that caliber, by teams outside of the NECC. They play a schedule that's pretty completely NECC with the exception of Wawasee, so we haven't really seen it. So that's the question that looms about them, is just how good they are. And it's a question we asked about Angola, and we do every year, even Angola the last 2 years, when they had gone undefeated in the regular season. How postseason ready does that schedule make you? And are you as strong as your record says? Is West Noble 7-0 because they're playing the teams they're playing, or are they 7-0 because they're just really good? I don't know if we get an answer to that until we get into sectional play, and they really have to be tested. And we see what they do if they get their backs against the wall or if they're playing, against a style that really clashes with them. We haven't seen it yet, so it's hard to really judge West Noble. It may be in a situation where we don't really know who West Noble is 7 weeks into the season.
Dan, it kind of feels like the final couple, because the conferences are decided much earlier in basketball. At least they don't go to the tail end of the season. I mean, not everybody is clinched in the area for football, but it feels pretty cut and dry who's going to win conference titles. But take us through the mindset of coaches entering the final couple weeks or final couple games of a regular season, whether it be basketball or football, because the key is to be peaking at the right time. So as a former coach, as a guy that's talked to a lot of basketball and football coaches in your time, what do they want to see over these final 2 weeks of the regular season?
Well, that's exactly what you said. You got to peak at the right time. It's a really delicate balance between making sure that you are staying strong with your momentum, especially if you're one of those teams that we talk about that could make a deep run at South Adams and East Noble, Bishop Dwenger. But at the same time, some of those games you got to dial back a little bit. You look at, we'll use South Adams as an example. What are they going to do in these next couple of weeks? Sitting at 7-0, you have Woodland, a game that you're expected to win this Friday at Woodland. You have Southern Wells in Week 9 that's sitting at 1-6 right now. You have to be able to find a momentum and run it with it and keep everything flowing nicely. But at the same time, you get in the second half of those games, if they're blowouts, you got to start reeling back your starters, taking your starters out of games. So it's a delicate balance to be able to keep momentum, but at the same time, make sure that you're keeping kids healthy, because healthy is a lot. And to be able to peak at the right time, you have to stay healthy. And sometimes it's not just the best team that wins in the postseason in high school football. It's the team that's the healthiest. And getting into week 10, 11, 12, health becomes an issue. So you certainly don't want to see anybody go down or get hurt in these last couple of weeks.
Dan, before we let you go, what is new at OutsideTheHuddle.net this week?
Well, obviously today we have our weekly power poll comes out every Tuesday. No surprise, Homestead's still on top. We've had them at number one from the beginning of the year in the preseason even, and they're still there. A story about Juice Taylor from Northside coming back from a gruesome injury. It's a nice read. If you don't know about the injury he suffered against Bishop Luers, that's a good one. Our Coach's Corner from Kevin Mers talking about 7 thoughts through 7 weeks of the season. And then we got some basketball stuff. I know you gave me a hard time last week, but we have some takeaways from some back-to-school leagues. And then we're in our countdowns now. Number 32 in our top 50 girls countdown was today, Dakota Crone from Woodland. And we kicked off our boys countdown today as well at number 50 with Joel Knox of Angola. So those are going to be running here for the next at least 45 days or so, and we're going to get into basketball pretty quickly. It's that great time of year where football and basketball kind of blend together, and there's a lot going on.
Before we let you go, I wanted to hear your process in putting a top 50 together, because I think we can all sit down and put a top 10 together, maybe even a top 15. But how the heck do you go from 15 to 50? What are your parameters? What's Dan Vance looking for?
Well, it is a tough thing to put together. We obviously look into the statistics. We look at the college offers and interest because that's important. Took in a lot of opinions from various coaches, experts in the area, people who work with these kids, who see these kids. And at the end of the day, it's more of the eye test than anything, because we see a lot of basketball outside the huddle. We've taken a lot of games. We see a lot of players. And so that's an important eye test, too. What we saw in person, what we see on video. I can tell you it was not easy. It's not easy to compile, to make sure that it's correct, and you feel comfortable with it. But we really do feel comfortable that we got the best 50 in the right order. But it's a long process. It took a couple months to really nail down and make sure that it was exactly how we wanted it.
Good stuff, as always, at OutsideTheHuddle.net. Appreciate it, Dan. We'll talk to you next week.
Hey, thanks, Justin.
That's Dan Vance of Outside the Huddle joining us as he does each and every week to kick off the show, talking area high school football. And pretty soon we'll be talking some area high school basketball, as this show will carry on into basketball season with practice starting already for the girls very soon, if it hasn't already. And then the boys later in the month, maybe even early November is when the boys will kick off. But actually is high school media day. High school basketball media day will be a week from Thursday out at the Coliseum. So Dan talked about those seasons overlapping. Exhibit A with Media Day for basketball coming up a week from Thursday. But we're talking football for at least a month more here, hopefully longer. Hopefully we have some some football to talk all the way through Thanksgiving. One of those teams that could be in for a deep run are the South Adams Starfires. We're going to talk to head coach Grant Mosier after the break. You are listening to the ESPN Coaches Show presented by Crumback Chevrolet on ESPN Radio 1380 and 100.9 FM.
On the field, your team wants to finish every drive with a score. With a new Chevy from Crumback Chevrolet, you'll prefer to keep driving. Maybe in the new and redesigned Silverado, the most dependable full-size pickup and best-in-class fuel economy. Or the Equinox, with modern design and technology, all packaged into a safe and versatile crossover. Looking for more family space? Then the mid-size Traverse will get you where you're going in style and comfort. And you can't lose with the Malibu or the all-new Blazer. Score today and find new roads this season with a visit to Crumback Chevrolet in New Haven.
Hello, I'm Jose Hernandez, and I have been using a wheelchair since my accident in 1995.
My name is Andrea Dalzell, and I've been using a wheelchair since I was 5 years old.
I guess if I had one message for the general public, it would be that I appreciate your help. But please, ask first.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that I've actually got everything under control.
I think people get nervous. They don't know how to act, so they pretend I'm not there.
What probably bothers me the most is when waiters talk to my companion and not directly to me.
I think everyone with a disability can relate to that parking spot problem.
We know you're just parking in that disabled spot for a second, but please, don't. We're just looking for the same respect and consideration as everyone else.
United Spinal Association is dedicated to enhancing the quality of life of people living with spinal cord injuries and disorders. Download our disability etiquette booklet at unitedspinal.org.
Listen and imagine. It takes 5 seconds to send a text, and for those 5 seconds, you're driving blind. Life is worth more than a text. Stay alive. Don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
11-year-old Mehdi lives in Ethiopia in extreme poverty. Child Fund works in 25 countries to ensure that millions of children like Mehdi grow up healthy, educated, self-sufficient, and safe. Learn more at childfund.org.
ESPN Radio 1380 and 100.9 FM is now on your Amazon Echo. Enable our skill today. Just ask Alexa to enable ESPN Fort Wayne skill. Once it's enabled, you can ask Alexa to open ESPN Fort Wayne, and it'll open up our live stream on Fort Wayne Sports Station.
Hey, it's Stiller and Scott Pieri, and we are Birdies and Bogeys. Check us out this Saturday at
8 to 9 a.m.
Brought to you by Apex Golf Lab
and Optimum Performance Sports.
Don't forget to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Birdies and Bogeys.
Fairways and greens, everybody.
For those fortunate enough to help the person who has always been their hero, find the care guides you need to help at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Now back to the High School Coaches Show with Justin Kenny on ESPN Radio 1380 and 100.9 FM.
Welcome back to the Week 8 edition of the ESPN Coaches Show, here presented by Crumback Chevrolet. I'm Justin Kenny, here with DC Hendricks producing. We kick the show off, as we do each and every week, with Dan Vance of OutsideTheHuddle.net. Before the break, Coach Grant Mosier here in just a second. Coach Rob Prescott of the Huntington North Vikings will join us at the bottom of the hour. And Jason Garrett, Bishop Dwenger Saints, will be on to wrap up the show at about 6:45. We'll break down that premier matchup in the SAC this week, Snyder and Bishop Dwenger, one of those rare matchups between the two with not much on the line in terms of SAC championship. So we'll talk to Coach Garrett about that and how his team is priming for Week 8, Week 9, and beyond, because that feels like one of the top priorities for coaches who may not be in the thick of a conference race right now. How do I get better over the next 2 weeks in preparation for the start of the playoffs? A team that's in a commanding position in its conference are the South Adams Starfires, sitting at 7-0 overall, 4-0 in the ACAC. They will take on Woodland in Woodburn this Friday night. in a big matchup in the ACAC. Head coach of the South Adams Starfires, Grant Mosier, and he joins us on the phone lines right now. Coach, what's up?
How you doing, Kenny?
I'm doing just fine. How are you, sir?
Good, real good.
I bet, man. 7-0, feeling pretty good, man. Take us through the last couple weeks because you become as automatic as anyone. That pivotal week 5, week 6, Monroe Central, Adams Central. You guys took care of biz both on the road.
Yeah, our kids are they're really playing well right now. They've really bought into what we're doing. Can't say enough about our quarterback right now, junior James Arnold, setting all kinds of records for us. He has now the career passing leader at South Adams as a junior. He has the career passing touchdown record. He has the career passing receptions, completions. So he's had quite a year now. That's also a credit to. We have some really talented wide receivers right now. We have 5 guys who are just really hard for teams in our conference to match up with Miller and Warner, Stutzman, Schock, and Bixler. And then our offensive line under Coach Lehman has done an incredible job. Allowing 0 sacks through 7 games. So we're really happy with our offense right now, putting up points. Our defense as well. Coach Steiner, our D coordinator, is one of the best in the area, no question. Has an incredible game plan every single week. Does great adjustments after the first couple drives. A lot of times does in-game adjustments so well. One of the best I've seen, and then some other coaches on his staff too. So we are blessed right now with some good assistant coaches and an incredible team right now of players who are playing hard and bought in and play for each other.
Coach, you mentioned James Arnold, and it's okay, you can come clean. I mean, is the kid throwing as much as he is because his father happens to be your boss?
That's what some people in Bern might say. Until you see him, hey, you know what? We had a little bit of people who thought we had a quarterback controversy week 1 because James coming off the ACL tear and Aiden Warner played week 1 and did absolutely phenomenal. He was 8 for 8 and 100 and some yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. And he's obviously a really good athlete, so he ran the ball pretty well. And some murmurs and big old Bern, hey, you have a quarterback controversy, don't you? And I said, just wait till you see James out there throwing the ball, and you might change your mind pretty quick. Because Aiden is just a phenomenal receiver as well. Aiden's one of the leaders in the conference in receiving, does everything both sides of the ball. And James, he can absolutely sling it for a kid in the ACAC at 1A. So, again, we're just trying to stay healthy and keep our kids motivated. Obviously, a huge game this week with Woodland. We really, since day one, have wanted to win the ACAC conference. It's been 26 years, back when I was in kindergarten last time we did that. So our kids are all in for that. And Woodland's a good team. They have a lot of athletes on the field. They're fast. They're well coached with Haydock, obviously. So we're working out for us, but we really want that trophy.
You mentioned a kid I wanted to ask you about, Aiden Warner. He filled in admirably week 1 at quarterback, threw multiple touchdowns, seen some action in relief here and there since then. But he's also co-leader in interceptions for you with 4. He's one of your leading receivers. He kicks for you. I mean, in terms of a kid that is an MVP, and you're loaded with talent for sure, but a sophomore in Aiden Warner has arguably been the most valuable for you in all 3 facets of the game.
He's been phenomenal. I mean, we didn't know how good a receiver he actually was. He played a little bit as a freshman. Wide receiver, played mostly JV quarterback his freshman year. Now, he has the Warner name's pretty common in Bern. You look at both his older brothers, both went through and played quarterback at South Adams. Dustin and Derek both wanted to play football at Taylor University. But he's been phenomenal at wide receiver. He goes up and goes up and gets it, and then also he just runs behind guys. So, like I said, we have 5 receivers, but 3 that are really good on deep balls with Nick Miller, a 6'4" guy, it's hard to match up with. Stutzman, who has all kind of yards and touchdowns and pretty athletic, and like you said, Warner. But then defensively, he's a sophomore free safety, and he might be one of our best defensive backs / best players on defense. Have 4 interceptions, but is so well commanding the defensive huddle, getting guys lined up in coverages. He knows the game plan every single week. He knows the formations that team's going to come out in. So he's done an incredible job for us, and then been automatic PATs. And we're a 1A school. It's not like we have a kicking coach who's out here showing him how to do that. That's just self-taught. I think he's only missed 3 or 4 PATs this year, which is a big deal because we've scored a lot of touchdowns. He's kicked, I think he might be maybe 36 or 40, something like that in PATs, which some big schools might say it's not a big deal, but for us that's a pretty big deal. We can make that percentage at a small school. So he's been really valuable for us. But we just have a lot. I love our leadership right now. Our captains have been great. Grady Sprunger, our lineman, both two-way player, Braden Balmer, Nick Stuber, and James Arnold. They've been phenomenal. They actually called a player-only meeting today because we had 12 penalties on Friday night against Jay County, and they wanted to address that as a team without the coaching staff there and address. They thought some of the work ethic's not been great in practice right now. So when you have your captains calling a player-only meeting to 7-0, you're feeling pretty good about the kids you have.
Yeah, especially because I think that's probably the thing keeping you up the most at night is complacency setting in.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a scary time right now when you have you play some weaker teams like this week at Jay County, who's down a little bit. You keep thinking, well, we're going to be able to come out. We can come out flat, but our kids continue to come out and want to play. Now, I wouldn't have any worries hopefully this week with that because, again, playing a team that we like to get up for is Woodland. Again, they have one of the best players we've seen all season long. Defensive end wide receiver. Now, he didn't play last week with an ankle injury, so we'll see if we're preparing for him. Bischoff, a really good receiver they have. Joe Reedy, a 6'7" wide receiver. Hirschberger, so they have 4 pretty good wide receivers, and then Ben Reed's about a quarterback, but we're going to prepare for him like he'll be back too. We're going to assume that he's going to be back. So we'll have our hands full Friday night, but we hope to have all of Bern and Geneva, the Bern community up there, hopefully up and celebrate a ACS championship.
Grant Mosier, South Adams Starfires, joining us here on the ESPN Coaches Show, presented by Crumback Chevrolet. Grant, we've been talking for the last couple years about this group, maybe the junior and sophomore classes, and just them coming up. And as a coach within a program, when do you watch your younger groups of kids, and when do you start looking at those groups as saying, man, in 4 years or 5 years or 3 years, they're going to be pretty darn good at the high school level? When does that when do you kind of recognize that as kids are coming up?
Well, you have the dads that tell you that when they're in 3rd grade. Right?
Sure. That late, huh? They wait till 3rd grade to tell you?
That's right. Yeah, exactly. It's kindergarten. But it's, no, they were really, really dominant 5th and 6th grade and then in middle school. So we kind of look ahead there a little bit just to maybe seeing, like Nick Miller, for example, a really special kid. In 7th grade, we saw how good he was. He was already probably about 6 foot, maybe 175 pounds in 7th grade. So we said he was playing fullback, which you do in 7th grade. The best players usually run the ball. We said, you know what, he had a chance to start freshman year at tight end. So 8th grade year, we moved him to tight end, which he hated because you go from playing fullback, getting the ball 25 times a game in 7th grade, to getting the ball maybe 5 times at tight end in 8th grade. But we said, hey, this is what's best for you in the future and best for us. So kind of seeing that early. We saw James early, how good he could be. Nick Stuber, another kid, Aiden Warner. So kind of putting those guys in place in middle school and running your system early so they can fit right in. And we had 4 or 5 of those junior kids playing when they were freshmen. So kind of placing them early where you want them to help you in the future. We've done a good job with that, and those kids have played great from their freshman year till now.
Coach Michael Mosier, talking to him in the preseason, and he talked about having to coach this year's team different because the last 2 graduating classes from Adams Central were very self-sufficient. It was kind of, they were stacked, loaded. We coached them a different way. We kind of really hands-off attitude. Do you find yourself coaching this group differently because of the amount of talent of the team, or is it still the same as you coached the South Adams program 2-3 years ago?
Well, we've just continued to try. Now, it's probably the easiest as far as we finally feel like we have our high standards up to par, and kids bond to that, where we really try to have small things like we say anytime we're at practice, our kids are going to sprint anywhere they go. So they're going to get water, they're going to sprint to get water. They're going to the next drill, they're sprinting to the next drill. And we try to sell that as if we're sprinting all the way through practice, we won't condition. So the kids don't necessarily love that, but we've done that for 3 years now, and they're finally not having to stop because I see someone jogging and doing up-downs, because they finally bond to that, and the captains are the ones holding them accountable now. So the accountability is there now. This is fun to group because guys like James Arnold, who are texting me Friday night already, Saturday morning about film and play ideas, so that's kind of cool. Having, I don't want to say necessarily, but a guy like Peyton Manning, who you hear him talk about film study and the way he does and prepares, James is that way, the way he goes about preparation and having play ideas and schematically knowing things. So it's kind of cool as far as that goes. Being able to talk to a player kind of like a coach almost on the field.
Absolutely. Coach, I appreciate it. You got trying to wrap up at least a share of your first ACAC championship since 1993. As you said, you were a wee little lad in kindergarten the last time this happened. So
I'm still a pretty big lad, but I was in kindergarten.
All right, bud. Always a pleasure, man. Thanks for taking the time to join us. Good luck on Friday.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, man.
That's Coach Grant Mosier, one of the good ones at South Adams. His Starfire 7-0. It's a lot easier to be in good mood when you're 7-0. And South Adams rolling. They go to Woodburn on Friday, try to wrap up at least a share of the ACAC championship. They'll try to take it outright next week at home against Southern Wells, provided they get past the Warriors on Friday. We're going to take a break. We'll come back. Coach Bob Prescott of the Huntington North Vikings will join us. You are listening to the ESPN Coaches Show, presented by Crumback Chevrolet on ESPN Radio 1380 and 100.9 FM.
On the field, Drive with a score. With a new Chevy from Crumback Chevrolet, you'll prefer to keep driving. Maybe in the new and redesigned Silverado, the most dependable full-size pickup and best-in-class fuel economy. Or the Equinox, with modern design and technology, all packaged into a safe and versatile crossover. Looking for more family space? Then the mid-size Traverse will get you where you're going in style and comfort. And you can't lose with the Malibu or the all-new Blazer. Score today and find new roads this season with a visit to Crumback Chevrolet in New Haven.
Vicky, how you doing? How's the knee?
It's coming along, doctor, but still some soreness.
Well, let's see. This soon after surgery, some pain is pretty normal.
I was hoping to get more painkillers. The first round worked great.
We're being very careful with those now. Prescription painkillers are opioids, same as heroin. It's easy to start taking them, not so easy to stop.
Last year in America, an average of 40 people died from opioid abuse every day. Long-term addiction has become America's newest health epidemic.
So no pills?
Vicky, you're doing great. So let's try these anti-inflammatories, plus your physical therapy. If the soreness doesn't continue to get better, give me a call.
For opioids, the smaller the dose prescribed and taken, the better. Because even a few prescription painkillers can sometimes go a wrong way. A message from the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons and the Orthopedic Trauma Association. Visit orthoinfo.org/prescription safety.
If you think making false threats is a joke, think again. Any communication threatening students, teachers, and staff at schools or public places is a federal crime that could lock people behind prison doors for up to 5 years.
I'm FBI Deputy Director David Bowditch, making you aware that hoax threats have real consequences. We don't want to see a young person begin their adult lives with a felony record.
Making false threats is not a joke. Think before you post. Visit FBI.gov.
You're listening to The High School Coaches Show with Justin Kenny on ESPN Radio, 1380 and 100.9 FM.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Week 8 edition of the ESPN Coaches Show presented by Crumback Chevrolet. If you're looking for some weekend activities, football on Friday night, the game of the week this Friday here on ESPN Radio 1380, 100.9 FM. It's the rivalry between the Bishop Dwenger Saints and the Snyder Panthers, 6-1 versus 6-1. They kick off at 7 o'clock, pregame show at 6, and it's out at Spohler Stadium. So out on the turf at Spohler. For basically a battle for second place, provided Homestead doesn't completely collapse over the last 2 weeks as they play Wayne and Southside. So a big matchup coming up in the SAC coming up on Friday night right here on ESPN Radio 1380, 100.9 FM. Plenty to play for in the Northeast 8 Conference over the final 2 weeks. Yes, East Noble atop the league, but very competitive from about 2 to 7 all season long. And a team that's kind of opened some eyes throughout the season with a new coach at the helm, Huntington North Vikings, after last year struggling to a 4-6 team. Year before went winless, but Coach Prescott trying to change the philosophies at Huntington North. And Coach Prescott joins us on the phone lines right now. Coach, how are you?
I am fantastic. Thank you for having me on.
See, and that's that kind of energy that people in Huntington are excited to have at leading their football program.
Well, it's easy to be excited and bring a lot of energy when you got great young men and people that are supportive in our community, and I'm just blessed and grateful to have this opportunity to coach our Vikings, and they work extremely hard. And we haven't won as many games as we would like, but we're very competitive and we play hard every night. So just so grateful and pleased to be a part of this Viking program.
Coach, you took over a similar program in Peru in 2011, a team that hadn't really been competitive in a while. And Huntington North's kind of been that 5-5 team. Occasionally they'd be better, but really fell on bad times. No continuity with coaches the last couple years. What was the primary thing when you took over this program that you wanted to accomplish from day one?
Day one, and it'll continue to as we go throughout the years, but it's just to get better every day. Improve as a person, improve as a player, improve as a student. And so if you bring your best in everything that you do, you have no choice but to improve. And if we can take care of the small details and focus on those things, then eventually wins and losses will take care of themselves.
These guys are learning from you, but you're also learning in a completely different conference. How is it? Does it affect when you and your game planning when you're facing programs that you've never played?
Yeah, you've just got to, especially with what we're doing with our offense. You're going against outstanding coaching staffs that have quality programs, and you just don't know how they're going to line up from one week to the next. For those people that have seen Rensselaer Central play in the state finals 5 or 6 years ago and beat Evansville Mater Dei, that's really the offense that we're in. It's a double tight end with a lot of misdirection and pulling a lot of linemen, and we're getting better at it. We've still got a long ways to go with it, but you see a team on film that might be a 4-2-5 kind of concept, and now they're in a kind of a 6-3 or even a 6-4 look, and they're just doing different things to combat what we're doing offensively. So you just got to learn to be flexible and coach on the run and have a communication system that's set up that your players can understand, and you just adjust throughout the game.
Yeah, Coach, pulling, misdirections, what are some of the key principles to running that type of offense that maybe takes longer to learn?
I think the biggest thing that helps us out is we're actually foot-to-foot splits. And so some people have called it kind of a single wing offense. And there's a little bit of single wing in it. It's got some wing T concepts. I was a no-huddle triple option guy for over 20 years. And when we made the move about 4 years ago, there's some similar concepts offensively to that. But I think the thing that helps us a lot, our pulling tracks are so tight, it's hard for teams to simulate that in a week's practice trying to get ready for us. And so one of the things that's been tough for us is we're really young up front and inexperienced, and we're going against defenses, especially up front, that have strong, physical, big kids. And sometimes it's hard for us to find the creases we want. But our kids continue to fight, and I've been real pleased with our defense, the way we fly around the field. This last week was a little lopsided with Leo, and credit to them. They got after us and had a great game plan and executed it really well. And that was by far our biggest lopsided game. Maybe we didn't have as much fight as we would like, but overall it's been outstanding, and we're just trying to find ways to compete every week and find a way to get a win.
He's Coach Bob Prescott of the Huntington North Vikings, joining us here on the ESPN Coaches Show presented by Crumback Chevrolet. Coach, let's talk about some of your personnel. I think Devin Newcomb is a name that immediately comes to mind that maybe not a lot of people know about outside of the Northeast 8, but Devin Newcomb, one of the better players, not just in the NE8, but I'd say the entire area.
Yeah, he's a skilled athlete. He's had interception return for a touchdown, kickoff return for a touchdown, punt return for a touchdown, rushing TDs, receiving TDs. Probably before I got here, more of a receiver by trade on offense. Had played some defense, but he's been our go-to shutdown corner this year. And then we've asked him to kind of carry the ball more as a running back with the offensive style that we have. And he's done that really well, but an explosive young man that we'd like to be able to find a way to get more touches to. The defenses definitely have him keyed and a star on him, trying to make sure they shut him down. But he's had an outstanding year for us and has stayed healthy, and he's a threat at any time to go the distance if we can get him a crease.
Coach, when you look at your roster, a lot of freshmen and sophomores I see. Are you guys largely young like that, or mixing in a decent amount of seniors?
We only have 7 seniors on our roster. And so, to be at 73 kids is a nice number to have. And so we're excited about our future, that we're trying to do everything we can for those 7 seniors to give them every memory and experience and as many wins as possible. We've got 33 freshmen that's had an outstanding season. And we're future's bright with those guys. So we've got a nice mix of seniors, juniors, and sophomores that play on Friday night.
Coach, you've coached at various locales in your career in over 23 years now, and everybody talks about, the kids in the hallways and getting these kids out or these kids out. In your experience, are the student bodies all the same everywhere? I mean, obviously some have a different amount of kids, but we're talking about kids. We're talking about athletes. Does every school have those same type of kids? It's just a fact of getting them out? Or have you found in your experience that different schools you've coached at have a different type of kid?
I do think there's a little bit of different kind of kid at different places. I've been at some places where maybe the commitment hasn't been as high and it just hasn't been emphasized maybe at home, and maybe there's a lot more other stuff to do outside of an athletic team. But the last few schools I've been at, we've had great family values. And the kids at Huntington North have been outstanding. The transition, they've made it really easy, and the things that we've asked them to do, they've bought into, and I'm so grateful for that. And the one thing that I've really liked about the student body at Huntington is our student body at the football games has been crazy. Just great numbers. It's called the Pit, and they've just been outstanding, and so they're excited, and you can just tell there's a feel about the student body that they care about each other and they support each other. And I think that's the different places I've been, you don't get that at all the schools. And so that's one thing that's really awesome about the students here in Huntington.
Coach, before I let you go, I wanted to ask you, is Aiden Hostler as big of a pain in the butt as he was for us at OPS when he was doing his rehab with us?
Absolutely not. He's had a great senior year. He had an injury and has come back in less than a year and has done an outstanding job. He's a guy that wants to please and has had a great year kicking and punting for us. And he's a kid we're definitely going to miss, but a great young man that's going to play next year somewhere.
Oh, yeah, we have a fair amount of dents on the wall from Aiden practicing his kicking when he was coming back from his injury, but it was great to have him.
I bet that is true. But he has worked really hard at his craft, and he's very passionate about kicking, and we love to see that.
Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to join us. Good luck the final two games, both on the road for you, and should be competitive at Norwell and New Haven. We'll see if you guys can finish with a couple victories. So good luck coming up on Friday and Week 9 as well.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you having us on, and it's a great day to be a Viking.
Absolutely. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
That was Coach Bob Prescott of the Huntington North Vikings joining us. First-timer, Coach Prescott, on here. He's 2-5 in his first year with Huntington North, and I think I see a lot of similarities with Huntington North to what we saw last year with Bart Curtis taking over Warsaw. He was a longtime coach at Mishawaka, kind of surprised some people when he left Mishawaka to take over the Warsaw job. Got 7 wins in the first season in a completely drastically different look offensively. Warsaw is 6-1 this year. Only a close loss to Plymouth is the Tigers' only blemish. They opened the year with a 52-13 win over Huntington North. But I can see the similarities. Similar personalities with Coach Curtis and Coach Prescott, similar mindsets. They're old school coaches, but they can relate to kids in 2019. They can get them fired up to play football, and I think better days are ahead for Huntington North. They have a great shot at winning at Norwell this week and at New Haven. Should be competitive games. Who knows? Huntington North could finish the season with 4 wins, at least the regular season. But thank you to Coach Prescott for coming on. We're going to take a break, come back. Coach Jason Garrett, Bishop Dwenger Saints will join us to wrap up the show. You are listening to the ESPN Coaches Show presented by Crumback Chevrolet on ESPN Radio 1380 and 100.9 FM.
On the field, your team wants to finish every drive with a score. With a new Chevy from Crumback Chevrolet, you'll prefer to keep driving. Maybe in the new and redesigned Silverado, the most dependable full-size pickup and best-in-class fuel economy. Or the Equinox, with modern design and technology, all packaged into a safe and versatile crossover. Looking for more family space? Then the mid-size Traverse will get you where you're going in style and comfort. And you can't lose with the Malibu or the all-new Blazer. Score today and find new roads this season with a visit to Crumback Chevrolet in New Haven.
In the aftermath of tragic attacks such as the one at Santa Fe High School in Texas, there is often an increase in hoax threats to schools and other public places. Whether false threats are made on social media, verbally or otherwise, criminals could be locked behind prison doors for up to 5 years. FBI Deputy Director David Bowditch.
The Bureau and its law enforcement partners take each threat seriously. We investigate and fully analyze each threat to determine its credibility.
In addition to time behind bars and a fine, other consequences of this crime include
emotional distress to students, school personnel, and parents. False threats also drain taxpayer money and divert valuable law enforcement resources away from other critical responsibilities.
Making false threats is not a joke. Think before you post. Report threats and suspicious behavior to law enforcement, and in emergencies, dial 911. With FBI This Week, I'm Molly Halpert of the Bureau.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did. And just maybe, someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
City streets or small towns, everyone deserves a clean, green community. We are Keep America Beautiful, the nonprofit working to end littering, improve recycling, and beautify communities. Let's do beautiful things. Visit KAB.org.
There's always news about Notre Dame sports, and the very latest is covered in the Blue Gold Report podcast. Fighting Irish sports from the inside out. Download the Blue Gold Report. Go to ESPNFortWayne.com today. Now back to the High School Coaches Show with Justin Kenny on ESPN Radio, 1380 and 100.9 FM.
Welcome back for the final time to the Week 8 edition of the ESPN Coaches Show, presented by Crumback Chevrolet. ESPN Radio 1380, 100.9 FM is what you're listening to, and you can also listen to this very same station on Friday night for the ESPN Game of the Week with Bishop Dwenger and Snyder from Spohler Stadium. Coming up, 7 o'clock kickoff, pregame starting at 6 o'clock. Battle of 6-1 teams, both priming for hopefully, potentially, deep runs in the postseason. And one of the coaches that will be contesting that game is with us right now, Coach Jason Garrett of the Bishop Dwenger Saints. On with us. Coach, how are you?
Great. How are you guys?
Doing great, sir. And congratulations. 3 straight victories. Knocked off your rival last week. So let's get a status report for the Bishop Dwenger Saints. 6-1 entering Week 8. How are we feeling?
Well, I think we've had a good 3 weeks, as you said. I think, we're in the process here. We got 2 more regular season games to get ready for the postseason. So a lot of good things. Obviously, still quite a bit to work on, but Friday night gives us an opportunity to really see where we're at.
Coach, when you talk about working on things, are there overriding things that you say, okay, over the next 3-4 weeks we need to get better here, or is it you take it game to game and kind of pick things out, or is it a combination of those things?
Yeah, I think it's a combination. I think you're always, developing your scheme and finding new ways to do things and ways to execute, and you're always thinking of different situations that you have to be prepared for. And I think in that sense, you're building week to week some new things, and obviously each game, you see some good things, and it exposes some things that you need to develop and work on, and obviously then that involves personnel and some other things. So, yeah, I mean every bit of the word process is involved as you go week to week for sure. And since we're in the SAC, obviously, that even exasperates that even more. That you got a lot to work on week to week and a lot to prepare for.
Coach, you've held 5 of 7 opponents thus far to 6 points or less. I don't want to say this defense is better than last year because you want to stay title, but is it different? I mean, compare last year's D to this year.
Boy, I've never really thought about the comparison. I think, obviously scheme-wise and preparation-wise and what we ask our guys to do, and then, ultimately it's built on an unselfishness, for all 11 guys, fulfilling their responsibilities, and, God willing, everybody upholding the tradition of playing physical and fast, which is something that's been passed on for generations at Bishop Dwenger High School. So, we're blessed to have Coach Krokman and the defensive staff, and they get our guys ready. But ultimately on Friday nights, those guys are willing to fulfill their fulfill their role, be unselfish, play together, and that's been a recipe for some good things.
I think one of those guys defensively that we didn't know about that you surely did that was ready to step into a role was senior Gage Rembarger, and he's played tremendously well for you this season. Maybe a guy that outside the program didn't know, but he's one of those prototypical Bishop Dwenger kids that, hey, when my time comes, I'm ready to step up, and he's made a big difference for you defensively.
Yeah, amen. And it's kind of interesting you bring him up because it was about this time last season that he started rolling into more reps and things like that with our ones last year, and was starting at corner in the state game. So yeah, he's just one of those guys that works his tail off, and he kind of bleeds the Navy in gold, if you will, and willing to do whatever we ask him to do. And he moved from corner to that outside linebacker spot, and he's coachable. He plays physical, plays fast. So, we're very, very proud of him, very happy to have him for sure.
One thing that impressed last year was that middle part of that defense, that second level, those linebackers that could go sideline to sideline, make plays, they could penetrate as well. Do you feel as confident with this cadre of linebackers that you did last season at this time?
Yeah, I certainly think that confidence grows week to week. I mean, looking at what we had to replace there, and the guys that have stepped up, namely, Devin Tittman and Crone and Jimenez, and we've got some younger guys that are certainly doing a great job at our second and third, levels of depth. And so, very, very proud of those guys. And because of what we asked those guys to do, it takes a little bit of time for them to settle in. And I think going into Game 8, they're in a real good place right now. They know what they're doing. They're making the calls, making adjustments. And I think when they're able to do that, they can play even faster and even more physical, and we're starting to see that.
Coach, something that you guys have always been able to do is spread the wealth in terms of offensively. A lot of guys carrying the football, a lot of guys with receptions. I mean, is it by design, or do you, we go into a season with 10 kids that can carry the ball? Because I have to think at this time of the year, that's paying dividends, not just with guys with experience, but also that guys aren't being ground down by carrying it 20, 25 times per game. You're really kind of, allowing them to rest or not be wore out once it really starts counting when you get into mid-October.
Yeah, I think first thing you think about is, first of all, we're blessed to have the guys to be able to do that, and we certainly do. It is a philosophy. We want a 2-platoon as much as possible. We've got about 5 or 6 guys that we consider to be two-way specialists. And certainly. I mean, it's part of our mindset that at the end of the day, it's about a state championship. And so as best we can, we want to be competitive. We want to keep their conditioning up. We want to get them reps, all the while keeping them as healthy as we possibly can. So in some ways it's by design. It's a philosophy, and so far it has paid great dividends for us.
Coach, before I let you go, I wanted to ask you about the big one on Friday. You go to Snyder to play the Panthers. A great game, great rivalry over the years. What should we expect on Friday?
Well, it's going to be a great high school football atmosphere and a great high school football game. They have a tremendous program, and obviously all the respect in the world for those guys. And it hasn't disappointed over the years, and we don't expect it to disappoint on Friday night. So we're greatly looking forward to the opportunity, and it should be a real fun night.
Coach, we got through the entire interview, only mentioned one Tittman. I think that's a record.
That might be a miracle in itself right there.
Right? Absolutely. Coach, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us. Good luck on Friday night.
Hey, always appreciate you guys having us on. Thank you.
As Coach Jason Garrett of the Bishop Dwenger Saints joining us. 6-1 Saints, their lone loss, that 17-15 setback to Homestead in Week 4. A very good game. That was. We expect the same at Spuller Stadium on Friday night against the Snyder Panthers. Dwenger then wraps up the regular season back at Spuller Stadium to take on the Northrop Bruins on October 18th. Whereas the week after, Bishop Dwenger will get a bye. Unlike 4A, 5A will have a bye between the final final week of the regular season and the playoffs with just 32 teams in the class. That's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you to Dan Vance of OutsideTheHuddle.net joining us, Grant Mosher of the South Adams Starfires, and Bob Prescott, Huntington North Vikings, in addition to Jason Garrett of the Saints. Week 9 coming up next week.
Podcasts by Federated Media. Podcasts by Federated Media.